Imagine for a moment that you are carrying a heavy bag, a burden so weighty that it slows your every step and clouds your vision. You clutch it tightly, convinced that you must bear it alone, though your strength wanes with every passing moment. Yet, nearby, there stands one who is willing to carry it for you, to lift the weight and free you from the strain. All you must do is let go. We live in a world where worry clings to us like shadows, whispering fears of what lies ahead and doubts about the path we tread. We strive to control every detail, wrestle with uncertainties, and guard ourselves against what we cannot foresee. But in doing so, we often forget a profound truth, that there is a greater hand at work, one that we can trust completely. To let go of worry and give it to God is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the quiet strength of a heart that knows its limits and seeks solace in the infinite. It is an act of trust, of surrender, and of faith in a purpose far greater than our own. When we release our anxieties into divine hands, we open ourselves to peace, guidance, and the reassurance that we are never alone. Today, let us explore what it means to step away from the relentless grip of worry and into the freedom of trust. To surrender is not to yield in defeat, but to rise in trust. It is to acknowledge that we are not the masters of time, nor the architects of destiny, but pilgrims on a path far greater than our understanding. Life, with all its intricacies, seldom unfolds as we expect. Its twists and turns can baffle the sharpest minds. Its storms humble the mightiest souls. Yet, within this unpredictability lies a profound truth. We are not called to chart the course of the universe, but to trust the one who has already designed it. Trusting in God's plan requires a departure from the illusion of control. How often do we clutch at the reins of life, thinking that by sheer will we can direct every event, resolve every conflict, and anticipate every challenge? Yet, the more tightly we grip, the more life seems to slip through our fingers. We are not infinite, nor are we omniscient. Our understanding is but a single thread in the vast tapestry of existence. To surrender, then, is to step back and behold the artistry of the one weaving it all together. But surrender is no easy act. It asks for vulnerability, a laying down of pride and self-reliance. It asks us to silence the voice that says, "I must do this alone," and instead lean into the assurance that we are never abandoned. In surrender, there is an exchange, a relinquishing of burdens too heavy for human shoulders, and the reception of peace that surpasses comprehension. It is not a passive resignation to fate, but an active trust in the goodness of God. It is a decision to believe that, even in the darkest valleys, there is a purpose, and even in the fiercest storms, there is a guiding hand. The power of surrender lies in its ability to transform. It does not erase challenges or remove pain, but it changes how we walk through them. When we trust in God's plan, our perspective shifts. What once seemed insurmountable becomes bearable, for we know we do not face it alone. Fear loses its grip and hope takes its place. We begin to see not just obstacles but opportunities, not just chaos but a pattern waiting to emerge. In surrender, we find the strength to persevere, not because we are strong, but because we are upheld by a strength far greater than our own. When some say, to trust in God's plan is to accept that we may not always understand. There will be moments when the road ahead seems shrouded in mystery, when prayers appear unanswered, and when hope feels distant. Yet faith reminds us that unseen does not mean absent, and silence does not mean neglect. God's timing is not ours, and His ways are higher than we can fathom. What may seem like a delay could be preparation. What feels like a detour could be protection. Trusting in His plan means believing that all things, even those we cannot comprehend, are working together for a greater good. Surrender also brings freedom, Worry chains us to the unknown, binding us in fear and anxiety. We replay scenarios, anticipate outcomes, and exhaust ourselves with questions that have no answers. But when we give our worries to God, we break those chains. We are free to live fully in the present, knowing that the future is held securely in His hands. We are free to let go of the need to control, to manipulate, and to strive endlessly for certainty. As for the future, one thing is certain. No matter what, we are free to let go of the need to control, to manipulate, and to strive endlessly for certainty. Instead, we can rest in the assurance that God's plan is unfolding, even when it is hidden from our view. Yet, surrender is not a single moment. It is a daily choice. It is waking up each morning and saying, "I trust you with today." It is releasing the need to have every step mapped out and embracing the adventure of faith. It is holding our plans loosely, ready to yield them to God's better purpose. This daily act of surrender keeps our hearts open to His guidance, our minds attuned to His wisdom, and our lives aligned with His will. In surrender, we also find a deeper connection with God. Trusting in His plan draws us closer to Him, for it is in dependence that we truly encounter His presence. When we lay down our burdens and look to Him, we are reminded of His character, His love, His faithfulness, His power. We come to know Him not as a distant deity, but as a compassionate Father who walks with us, sustains us, and works all things for our good. Surrender becomes not just an act of trust, but an act of worship, a recognition of His sovereignty and our reliance on Him. And so, the power of surrender is not in what we give up, but in what we gain. We release fear and receive peace. We let go of control and find freedom. We surrender our plans and discover a purpose greater than we imagined. In trusting God's plan, we step into the truth that we are cared for, guided, and deeply loved. The burdens we once carried are lifted, and the path before us, though not always clear, is made secure. Faith over fear invites the soul into a higher way of being, a path that lifts us from the mire of anxiety and sets our feet upon solid ground. It does not deny the reality of fear, but seeks to replace its dominion with the quiet assurance that comes from trust in the One who holds all things in His care. To trust is not to ignore the storm, but to know that even in its fury we are not abandoned. Anxiety may howl its accusations, yet trust replies with a deeper, unshakable truth. The human heart is no stranger to fear. It creeps in through uncertainties and whispers its false certainties about the future. It draws us into a spiral of what-ifs and shadows every step with doubt. But faith calls us to something greater, not merely to dismiss these fears, but to confront them with the confidence that we are not alone. Trust in God transforms the narrative, shifting the focus from our inadequacies to His sufficiency, from our limitations to His boundless provision. Anxiety often arises from our desire to control what lies beyond our grasp. We long for assurance in outcomes, for certainty in paths yet untraveled. Yet the paradox of faith is that it invites us to let go, to release our grip on the reins, and entrust them to One whose wisdom far exceeds our own. This surrender is not a passive resignation, but an active choice, to believe that even when we cannot see the way is still being made. Consider the lilies of the field. Clothed in splendor, they did not toil to create. They flourish not because they strive, but because they rest in the provision of their Creator. So too are we called to live, not in the frantic pursuit of control, but in the restful confidence of trust. Anxiety burdens the soul, chaining it to the worries of the moment, while trust sets it free to rise above, to see the broader horizon painted by divine hands. Trust in God does not promise a life free from challenges. It does not shield us from every sorrow or trial, yet it offers a perspective that transforms how we face them. Fear would have us believe that trials are insurmountable, that we are left to navigate them alone. Trust, however, speaks a different word, assuring us that we are accompanied by a presence that never falters, a strength that never diminishes. In the face of uncertainty, trust becomes the anchor of the soul, holding us steady amidst the shifting tides of life. It is not blind optimism, nor is it ignorance of the difficulties that lie ahead. Rather, it is a deliberate choice to place confidence not in what is seen, but in the one who sees all. It is to believe that even in the darkness there is light, even in the silence there is guidance, even in the pain there is purpose. Anxiety often thrives in isolation. It convinces us that we are alone in our struggles, that no one can truly understand the weight we carry. But trust reminds us of the eternal truth that we are never abandoned. The God who formed the stars and calls them by name also knows the depths of our fears and walks with us through them. To trust is to open our hearts to this divine companionship, to let His presence dispel the shadows that anxiety casts. There is a quiet strength that comes from trusting in God, a strength that does not shout or demand, but simply endures. It is the strength to face each day with courage, knowing that we do not face it alone. It is the strength to let go of what we cannot control, to release our worries into hands far more capable than our own. It is the strength to hope, even when circumstances seem hopeless, and to believe that redemption is possible, even in the most broken of situations. Faith over fear is not a one-time decision, but a daily practice, a continual turning of the heart toward trust. It is the choice to replace the anxious thought with a prayer, the restless worry with a moment of surrender. It is the discipline of reminding ourselves again and again of the promises that have been made and kept by the one who is faithful. This practice does not come easily, for fear is persistent and anxiety relentless. Yet with each step of trust, the grip of fear loosens, and the soul begins to breathe more freely. In trusting God, we find not only peace but also purpose. Anxiety tends to paralyze, to focus our attention inward on our own struggles and limitations. Trust, however, lifts our gaze outward and upward, reminding us that we are part of a greater story. It allows us to see beyond the immediate challenges and to recognize the ways in which even our trials can be used for good. Trust empowers us to move forward, not in our own strength but in the assurance that we are being guided and sustained. The journey of replacing anxiety with trust is not without its struggles. There will be moments when fear seems to have the upper hand, when the weight of uncertainty feels too great to bear. Yet it is precisely in these moments that faith shines brightest, for it is not in the absence of struggle, but in the midst of it that trust finds its truest expression. To trust is to say, even when the way is unclear, that we believe in the one who is the way. It is to declare that, even when our own strength fails, His strength is sufficient. This kind of trust is not something we muster on our own. It is a gift, a grace that we receive as we draw near to God. It grows as we come to know Him more deeply, as we see His faithfulness in the past and His presence in the present. It is nurtured in the quiet moments of prayer, in the stillness of reflection, and in the fellowship of those who walk this journey with us. Trust is not a solitary endeavor, but a communal one, for we are strengthened by the testimonies of others, and reminded of the faithfulness that transcends all generations. In trusting God, we discover a peace that anxiety cannot steal. This peace is not dependent on circumstances, nor is it fragile or fleeting. It is a peace that endures, that holds steady in the face of trials, and shines as a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. It is the peace of knowing that we are held, that we are loved, and that we are never beyond the reach of grace. Worry, that ceaseless murmur in the corners of our mind, creeps in like a shadow, persistent and unrelenting. It whispers doubts and weaves fears, turning small uncertainties into mountains that tower over us. It is subtle, yet its effects are profound, touching not only the mind, but the body and spirit as well. To carry worry is to shoulder a weight that was never meant to be ours, a burden that slowly erodes the joy and peace we are meant to experience. In a burden that slowly erodes the joy and peace we are meant to experience. The mind in its intricate design is meant to wonder and to reason, but worry distorts its purpose. It pulls us into an endless loop of what-ifs, crafting scenarios that may never come to pass and filling our thoughts with an exhausting repetition of fears. Instead of being a place of clarity and reflection, the mind becomes a battlefield, where doubt and anxiety clash against fleeting moments of calm. This constant turmoil clouds our judgment, stifles creativity, and leaves us paralyzed by indecision. We lose the ability to fully engage with the present, for worry anchors us in a future that exists only in our imagination. In striving to anticipate every outcome, we miss the beauty and opportunities that lie before us. But worry does not stop at the mind. It seeps into the body, manifesting itself in ways both visible and unseen. The heart races, the breath shortens, and the muscles tighten as if bracing for an unseen threat. Over time, this relentless state of tension begins to wear us down. The body, designed for balance and renewal, struggles under the strain. Sleep becomes elusive, fatigue settles in, and even the smallest tasks feel insurmountable. Worry alters the rhythms of our being, disrupting the harmony that sustains health. It becomes a thief, robbing us of vitality and strength, leaving us weary from a battle we were never meant to fight. Yet perhaps the greatest toll of worry is on the spirit. The spirit which yearns for peace, connection, and purpose is stifled by the weight of constant concern. Worry narrows our focus, drawing our gaze inward to the point where we see only our fears and fail to lift our eyes to something greater. It creates a barrier between us and the divine, not because God withdraws, but because we become so consumed by our troubles that we forget to seek His presence. The spirit falters under the belief that it must face life's challenges alone, forgetting the promise of grace and the assurance of divine care. In its essence, worry is a misplaced effort to control the uncontrollable. It is the mind's attempt to wrest certainty from an uncertain world, to guard against every possibility and anticipate every outcome. But this effort is futile, for life, in all its complexity, will always hold mysteries beyond our grasp. The pursuit of absolute control only deepens our frustration and despair, for we were never meant to bear such a burden. To live in worry is to live in opposition to the natural order of trust, surrender, and reliance on a wisdom far greater than our own. Worry is also deceptive. It convinces us that by dwelling on our fears, we are somehow preparing for them, as if endless thought could fortify us against life's uncertainties. But in truth, worry drains us of the very strength we need to face challenges when they arise. It offers no solutions, only endless speculation and unease. It promises protection, but delivers only exhaustion. It isolates us, drawing us away from the comfort of others and the peace found in trusting God's provision. However, there is hope, even in the midst of worry's grip. For the weight of worry, though heavy, is not immovable. It can be lifted, but not by our own striving. The first step is recognition, a willingness to see worry for what it is and to acknowledge its impact on our lives. It is not weakness to admit that we are weary, it is the beginning of freedom. When we bring our worries into the light, we begin to see them for what they truly are, burdens we were never meant to carry alone. The next step is release. This is not a passive act, but an intentional choice to let go of what binds us. It is a turning away from the endless cycle of anxious thoughts and a turning towards something greater. It is a surrender, not to despair, but to trust, a trust that we are cared for, that we are seen, and that our lives are held in hands far stronger than our own. This act of release does not mean we cease to care about the challenges we face. It means we choose not to be consumed by them. In the letting go, we create space for renewal. The mind, freed from its relentless focus on fear, begins to regain its clarity and creativity. The body, released from the grip of tension, finds rest and healing. And the spirit, no longer weighed down by the false belief that it must carry everything alone, begins to soar. The burdens that once seemed insurmountable are placed into hands that can bear them, and we are free to walk forward in peace and purpose. The weight of worry is real, but so is the power to rise above it. We are not alone in our struggles, nor are we without hope. There is a path forward, one that does not deny the challenges of life, but embraces them with faith, courage, and the assurance that we are never forsaken. The journey begins with a single step, a decision to release the weight, to trust, and to move forward into the freedom that awaits. Prayer is not merely a ritual or a routine. It is a lifeline, a sacred connection between the finite and the infinite. It is the moment when the soul, wearied by the clamor of the world, turns its gaze upward and speaks its deepest truths to the one who listens without interruption. In prayer, we find not just a voice, but a sanctuary, a place where the restless heart finds calm and the troubled mind finds clarity. It is here, in this sacred dialogue, that peace begins to unfold. To pray is to acknowledge that we are not self-sufficient, that we do not have all the answers or the strength to navigate life's uncertainties on our own. It is a humble admission of our need, but far from diminishing us, this humility lifts us. It reminds us that we are connected to a power far greater than our own, a source of love and wisdom that invites us to cast our burdens away. In prayer, we find the courage to let go of what we cannot control and the grace to trust in a plan that is wiser than our understanding. The act of prayer is transformative because it redirects our focus. When we are consumed by worry, our thoughts spiral inward, circling endlessly around our fears and doubts. Prayer, however, draws us outward and upward. It shifts our attention from the chaos of our circumstances to the constancy of God's presence. In this redirection, we find a release from the grip of anxiety. The very act of lifting our hearts in prayer lightens the burdens we carry, for in sharing them, we are no longer alone. Bicycle. Prayer also brings clarity to the mind. In the stillness of prayer, the noise of the world fades, and we begin to hear the quiet whisper of truth. It is in this sacred silence that we often find answers, not always in the form of direct solutions, but in the form of peace that allows us to move forward. Prayer does not always change our circumstances, but it changes how we see them. This makes us realize that the outer appearance is not the crux, but the truth that forms our head by listening. It offers a perspective that is grounded not in fear but in faith, reminding us that even in the darkest moments, we are held by a love that never falters. Through prayer we learn to trust. Trust is not a passive state, it is an active choice, a decision to believe that we are cared for, even when the path ahead is unclear. In prayer, we place our worries, our hopes, and our struggles into hands that are far stronger than our own. This act of trust is not a surrender to uncertainty, but a surrender to certainty, a certainty in God's goodness and faithfulness. It is a declaration that we believe in the unseen, that we have faith in the promises of peace and guidance. But prayer is not only a refuge for times of trouble, it is also a wellspring of gratitude. In prayer, we pause to recognize the blessings that surround us, even in the midst of challenges. Gratitude shifts our perspective, reminding us of the beauty and goodness that exist alongside the difficulties. It teaches us to see life not as a series of obstacles, but as a journey filled with moments of grace. When we approach prayer with gratitude, we open our hearts to joy, and joy becomes a balm for the soul. The peace found in prayer is not fleeting, it is enduring. It is not a fragile calm that shatters at the first sign of trouble, but a deep-rooted serenity that withstands the storms. This peace does not depend on external circumstances, but flows from within, grounded in the assurance that we are never alone. It is a peace that guards the heart and mind, allowing us to face life's uncertainties with courage and hope. To enter into prayer is to step into a relationship, one that is deeply personal and profoundly transformative. It is not about perfect words or elaborate phrases. It is about honesty and openness. In prayer, we come as we are, with all our fears, doubts, and hopes, and we are met with compassion and love. This relationship is not one-sided. It is a conversation, a dialogue where we speak and listen, where we pour out our hearts and receive the comfort of divine presence. Prayer also strengthens the spirit. Just as the body requires nourishment and the mind seeks knowledge, the spirit craves connection with its Creator. In prayer, the spirit is renewed, its strength restored for the journey ahead. The more we pray, the more we cultivate this connection, and the more resilient our spirit becomes. Prayer becomes not just a refuge in times of need, but a constant source of strength and guidance. The beauty of prayer is that it is accessible to all. It requires no special place or time, no eloquence or expertise. It is a gift, freely given, that meets us wherever we are. Whether in moments of solitude or surrounded by the busyness of life, whether in joy or sorrow, prayer is always within reach. It is a reminder that we are never beyond the reach of God's care, never too far to be heard. To find peace through prayer is to discover a path that leads not only to calm, but to transformation. It is to experience a peace that surpasses understanding, a calm that steadies the soul in the face of life's uncertainties. In prayer, we do not merely escape from our worries. We are equipped to face them with a renewed spirit and a heart at rest. Through this sacred practice, we are reminded that we are deeply loved, divinely guided, and never alone in the journey of life. To let go and let God is to release the illusion of control we so often cling to, and to entrust ourselves fully to the one who holds all things in his hands. It is not a surrender born of despair, but a deliberate act of trust, a relinquishing of burdens too heavy for us to bear. It is an invitation to step into a life of greater freedom and deeper peace, where the striving of self is replaced by the steady assurance of divine guidance. Control is a tempting pursuit, one that promises security and mastery over the uncertainties of life. Yet, like sand slipping through fingers, it ultimately eludes our grasp. The harder we cling to it, the more elusive it becomes, leaving us wearied and disillusioned. For we were never meant to shoulder the weight of sovereignty, to carry the endless responsibilities of shaping every outcome and ensuring every path. Letting go begins with humility, an honest acknowledgement of our limitations. It is the recognition that our vision is partial, our strength finite, and our understanding incomplete. To relinquish control is to admit that we cannot see the end from the beginning, nor can we fully comprehend the intricate weaving of events that lie beyond our grasp. Yet in this admission lies the seed of trust, for in letting go of our own grasp, we open our hands to receive the guidance of the one who sees all and knows all. The practical steps toward letting go are simple in essence, though they may require the continual practice of a lifetime. The first is to pause and reflect. In the rush of life, we often allow fear and urgency to drive our actions. But in stillness, we find the clarity to discern what is truly within our control and what must be entrusted to God. This reflection is not an act of passivity, but of courage, for it requires us to face the uncertainties and unresolved questions we so often seek to ignore. Prayer becomes the next step, not as a mere formality, but as a genuine conversation. To pray is to lay our burdens at the feet of the divine, to speak honestly of our fears and desires, and to listen for the quiet assurance that comes in response. Prayer shifts the focus from ourselves to the one who is greater, lifting our eyes above the immediate and toward the eternal. It is an act of trust, a declaration that we are willing to let go of what we cannot control and to place it into hands far more capable than our own. As we learn to let go, we must also embrace gratitude. Fear often thrives on scarcity, on the belief that what we have is not enough and that we must strive to secure more. Gratitude, however, reminds us of the abundance already present, the blessings that surround us even in the midst of uncertainty. It shifts the heart from a posture of grasping to one of receiving, from fear of lack to trust in provision. In giving thanks, we affirm our trust in the one who has provided and will continue to do so. Letting go also requires us to release the need for immediate answers. We are creatures who crave resolution, who long to see the full picture and understand the purpose behind every twist and turn. Yet faith calls us to trust in the unfolding, to believe that even when the path is unclear, it is still being guided. To let go is to rest in the mystery, to embrace the unknown with the confidence that it is held within the wisdom of the divine. This journey is not without its challenges. The habit of control is deeply ingrained, and the temptation to take matters into our own hands will often arise. Yet each moment of surrender is a step closer to freedom. It is a reminder that we are not the authors of the story, but beloved participants in a narrative far greater than ourselves. And in this narrative, every chapter, even those marked by uncertainty and difficulty, serves a purpose in the greater design. Letting go also involves releasing the weight of past regrets and future worries. We often carry burdens that were never meant for us, clinging to what cannot be changed and fretting over what has not yet come to pass. To let go is to live fully in the present, to trust that grace is sufficient for today and that tomorrow will bring its own provision. It is to release the what-ifs that tether us to fear, and to rest in the assurance that we are held in every moment. As we practice letting go, we begin to see the beauty of dependence. Our culture often exalts independence as the highest virtue. Yet true freedom is found not in isolation but in relationship. To let God is to acknowledge our need for Him, not as a sign of weakness, but as a testament to the strength that comes from reliance on the divine. It is to recognize that our lives are not our own, that we are part of a greater whole, and that our stories are intricately woven into the fabric of a greater purpose. There is a profound peace that comes with surrender, a peace that cannot be manufactured or forced, but only received. It is the peace of knowing that we are not alone, that we are cared for by one whose love is unending and whose plans are for our good. This peace does not mean the absence of trials or challenges, but it provides the strength to face them with courage and trust. To let go and let God is ultimately an act of love. It is to trust that the one who created us knows us fully and loves us completely, that His ways are higher than ours and His purposes beyond our understanding. It is to believe that we are cherished, not for what we do or achieve, but simply because we are His. This love calls us to release our fears, to lay down our striving, and to rest in the embrace of the one who holds us. In this surrender, we find not loss but gain, not weakness but strength. We discover the freedom to live fully, to walk forward without the weight of control and anxiety pressing upon us. We find the joy of trusting in the one who is faithful, the one who leads us beside still waters and restores our souls. And in letting go, we are not diminished but made whole, not abandoned but drawn closer to the heart of the divine. So, let us choose to release the weight of our worries and entrust them to the one who holds all things. In surrendering, we do not lose control but gain peace. We do not abandon responsibility, but find rest for our weary souls. Life's challenges are not ours to bear alone, for there is one who walks with us, whose strength is made perfect in our weakness. Trust in His love, His timing, and His promises. Step forward with courage, knowing that when we let go, we create space for His grace to work and for His peace to reign.